One of the things I've noticed recently is that almost all of the people that I respect most in my life, or the people I look up to in my office, are always the type of people to write things down. Welcome to Parking Lot Philosophy, the only show where parking next to white cars has actual real world implications on my eyes. I used to write down things a lot physically. I have this grand notebook with a bunch of different pages in it and sticky notes and drawings and doodles. I was always a guy who liked the feeling of writing on paper. And then for some reason, over the last year or so, I can visually see it in my notebook here. I kind of started using this once I got my current job. Really over the last probably 6 to 8 months, I've just really slowed down in how much I write. And that's something that I think has had like surprisingly strong impact on my work abilities, my focus, just a little bit of everything. And so I noticed yesterday I was in like a meeting with people I don't typically work with. However, people I do have a lot of respect for the work that they do. And I noticed out of the people I tend to go like, this person's a hard worker. They really know what they're doing. They're really thoughtfully engaging in these conversations. They're all of the people who write things down. And then I thought further to this with one of my closest coworkers, and she's someone who really understands the job. She's technically in like the senior version of my position. And it's one of those things where I've noticed working with her, and as she's kind of like shown me the ropes and things, her like notebooks that she uses change and adjust over time. So I would say every few months she's got a new notebook, and that's what she uses to plan, to write things down, to come up with ideas. And I was someone who did that for a long time. And I mean, if you saw any of my little like, scrawlings and scribblings in here, I mean, I'm always someone who, kind of takes like little meticulous notes and things like that, kind of random ideas, and also likes to doodle in there too, because I think it's important to kind of visual aid for myself. But yeah, for some reason over the past few months, I've slowed down in how much I physically write things. I think it's a mixture of being like I have a computer all the time, like this is something I can digitally put all my notes in, and then that way other people can see it, because it is important for my coworkers to see, my thoughts as well. But I also think too, it's like half of these notes go into pages, and I'm like, I never look back at them. Now, some of them I do, but more often than not, I'll fill a page with nothing. And I was, I'm thinking I'm like saving the environment, but to think about it, it's like, no, it doesn't matter. Like my environmental impact, the notebook is already bought. I should just fill the notebook. It makes no difference. Now, I'm not saying I should waste pages, but I'm wasting my own time and energy by digitizing these notes or like writing things down there. But the other thing too, and there's studies behind like handwriting and how important it is for retention and memory and things like that. But I don't even think it's about, I don't need to memorize my notes. There's nothing that I do that I need to know the notes that I write down for. However, I do think it's a more critical and reflective analysis when I write things down versus when I type them. I think I am putting intention to the things I'm putting down. I can't write as fast as I can type. And so I have to be like, okay, we just said, 60 words worth of stuff. I cannot write 60 words per minute. How do I, shrink that down into something I can write? So sometimes it's, the equivalent of hieroglyphics. I mean, pictorial. Other times too, it's, graphs or charts, because it's like, okay, this is interesting data. I want to like replicate the graphs. So I think there's all these different things that handwriting, sorry, I have like a bubble in my sinus. There's all these different things that I think handwriting is really valuable for. And I think especially for thinking. The other thing I was thinking, I've really noticed that handwriting, I think, just kind of gives myself a little bit of like a extra reason to be doing something. I'm one of those people where it's like, if I don't find value in something, I'm gonna tend not to do it. And so you think writing is one of those things that, like, oh, there's not much value compared to typing. You might as well. But I think the act of actually writing, and I don't know if it's like it's just human nature, or if it's me specifically, or if it's because I like the art, but the tactile feeling of writing is almost replenishing in a way, whereas typing and looking at a screen is kind of draining. But when I look at my pages in my notebook, like I'm not necessarily like, it's not like I think they're artistic or anything, but it's just like I enjoy the look of the page, even if it's disorganized, even if it's scribbles, pen, pencil, ink, marker, highlighter, whatever, anything. I find, it's pleasing to look at. Whereas, like, I'm so tired of screens. I think that's part of it too. And I know there's like those like Remarkable and things like that, the iPads that are specifically for writing, to make it feel like it, but they're not the same. And it's one of those things that I think when I notice other people doing it and I think about it and actually reflect on it, I'm like, oh shit, yeah, like there is like a reason that I should be doing this. And part of it too, I think it is nice to look back at those eventually. Yeah, writing. We should do it more. Handwriting, handwritten. I wrote like a whole journal entry about it yesterday. Speaking of, we are writing in the journal now. But even one thing, I was thinking even further with this. I always, as a kid, like I loved going to the office supply store. I loved getting new notebooks, new pens, new pencils and stuff. And I think some of this was fostered by my mom, who very much loves that stuff. But also, too, I think it very much is, it is fun that in my job, I have like all these things that like I get free notebooks all the time. I get free pens all the time, things like that. And if I'm not getting the free stuff, I have my own office supply area like in the building that's constantly stocked. There's all these things, all these perks of my job that like I didn't think of as like a big perk because I'm an adult now. But that's another reason why I was thinking like I should be writing more is, imagine 8-year-old me like realizing like, hey, you have infinite sticky notes. That's actually pretty cool. Now, of course, I can't actually use the entire like 20 packages that are in the office supply room, but it is one of those things where it's like, I really could just, if I wanted to only write on sticky notes for a year, I could only write on sticky notes for a year. So, I think it's one of those things. It's a mix of like my childhood self, a mix of, I think it's good for the body, for the mind. There's research behind it too. I didn't bother like looking any of the research up, but I know for like memory, writing, handwriting is like, I think 3 times more effective is the number people say. But yeah, definitely write more. So, bye for now.